When I first started as a psychotherapist, I was working way too much and I was not trusting my inner guidance system. But I do think that the knowledge can be really valuable, especially when people are not feeling like they have the inner guidance system, when they're feeling a little
Absolutely.
lost and they need something to help guide them.
You are now live from the source with Viki and Alexander. Live your life from the source. Play your cards right. What's your number? All right. Welcome to another episode of Live from the Source. I'm Alexander.
And I'm Viki.
And we are here today with Logan Kingston. And Viki, will you please read? Welcome, Logan. Welcome to the
Thank
show.
you. Thanks so much for having me.
Logan Kingston is an author, psychotherapist, life and manifestation coach, and adventurer who helps people uncover limiting beliefs and step into their best lives. Based between Southampton, New York, and Cambridge, UK, she is the author of The Right Swipe and the forthcoming self-development book, It's Not Them, It's You, which is coming out in March 2026. Welcome. This is so exciting.
Thank you. I'm thrilled that you guys are having me as a guest. Thank you.
We are excited to talk to you. For our audience, as you know already, Logan, you are born to play the Jack of Diamonds with a King of Clubs personality. And you have a lot of exciting things that you're up to, that you've been doing. Will you share with our audience a little bit more about yourself and who you are, what you're up to?
Absolutely. So I am a psychotherapist, like Viki said in my bio. I'm actually just about to embark on a new adventure to Cambridge, where I will be studying a creative writing course and working on the second book is a self-development book that will be out in March, but then I will be working on my next rom-com, which will be more of a creative endeavor aligned with the course that I'm taking. I have pivoted quite a bit in my life. So I started off in communications right out of undergrad. And then I was in corporate America, wanted my own business card and extension. And then I hated it when I was there. And so my mother came across the New York City Teaching Fellows. I wound up applying for that and was accepted. And I taught for 8 years, making my way back out to the East End of Long Island. And then I was like done with the bureaucracy. And so I pivoted again. I went into marketing for 2.5 years. And then I was like, what am I doing with my life? I need to be working with young people. I have a master's in education, could be helping changing children's lives. So I got back into education and I noticed that so many of them were struggling with mental health challenges. So that's when I pivoted again. I went back for my master's in social work and became an LCSW and hence have the psychotherapy practice. All the while writing, always writing. I've been writing since I was about 6 years old. And yeah, so Jack of Diamonds, Jack of all trades, but I think master of many. Master of many.
Yes. Well, with that King of Clubs personality, of all the knowledge and the intelligence that you have to share and your writing abilities.
Thank you. Yeah.
Beautiful way to play these cards. That's for sure.
But, I will say, like, once I met Viki, I believe we met in 2017. Does that resonate?
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So, when you first told me about the cards, I was like, wow, this is really interesting. And then over the years, having dived in deeper and taking courses with you both, and like learning so much, and reading cards to my friends, it's like, everyone's like, oh my gosh, this is, wild. So, but learning more about the cards, the negative aspects of the cards, I also see where when I was younger, I wasn't playing my cards in the best way, like where that King of Clubs energy was a little more condescending without trying to be,
Okay.
but just not even realizing that I was like being that way, being like, well, no.
Well, the King of Clubs is the master of knowledge, the thought leader, and it definitely can be that you do know better. You can have the answer where other people just do not. And then how do you present that information?
Yeah, it's really an authoritative energy. It's a wise, authoritative energy. And then how do you play that? And it can be, yes, condescending on the low side
Yeah.
and a
Yeah.
lot of wisdom on the high side, you know?
Right. Yeah.
You mentioned how it's helped. Well, you started to talk about how it shifted for you to know your cards to play. I'm really curious, what were some of the first things that you noticed that by knowing your cards to play, what shifted for you? What changed your perspective? What was the awareness there?
Well, I think Vicky and I have talked a lot about because we've done so many healings and we talk about the different aspects of my cards. My Jack of Diamonds birth card, I have the 10 of Clubs as my Pluto card. And so that was a major challenge for me to overcome to really feel like I could step into my, shining my light,
Mm.
and I don't know, I'm talking here because I know so much about the cards,
Yeah,
but I don't know if
please.
you
Yes,
want to.
please do. Please
Okay.
do.
Please feel
Because
free to talk and share.
Absolutely.
yeah, so just not getting in the way of myself and double crossing myself because I'm self-sabotaging and being ready to just really shine my light into the world with the knowledge that I have.
Mm,
And so I think knowing, and Vicky and I have talked a lot about that Pluto card and how it's my test, and
Mhm.
like stepping into that power and remembering that this is going to be one of my challenges in life. That's the beauty of when I can overcome that challenge and I can say, all right, yeah, is this going to be hard for a minute?
Yeah.
And when I get to the other side of it and I push through, I'll feel so good,
Mm.
by playing that card in the right way.
It's so fabulous to have the awareness and to know the Pluto energy. And for our listeners, so Logan's Pluto card, which is the shadow energy, it's our unconscious hidden fears, is the 10 of clubs. The 10 is about being in and shining in the spotlight, which you can actually see in the pip pattern, that center open space, shining in the spotlight. And clubs represent the mind. So ideas, wisdom, knowledge, shining in the spotlight of her knowledge, right? So bringing that and illuminating that to the surface, that there can be a fear of it, there can be a shadow energy, being that it's her Pluto card. She can overextend herself by double crossing herself. You can see that in the pip pattern, and not creating strong enough boundaries, also in the pip pattern, and trying to fill up that space in the center with things that maybe don't serve you in the best way, right? Like having so much on your mind and filling your mind up, as opposed to finding the space and the stillness in your mind to then
Yeah.
allow that knowledge to come through you for you to write your books and then shine in the spotlight in that.
Right, and being the Jack of Diamonds, one of the things about that card, that those aspects, is being fiercely independent.
mm,
And because of that, I'm able to like fill my to-do list with many, many things and just keep learning and learning and learning and doing and like not making space for the things that really matter, and
Mm.
like the people that matter, which I've gotten so much better about in life. But I do, when I like started reading about that fierce independence, I'm like, yep.
mm.
So totally me.
What what does it do for you, would you say, to know these patterns? You've referenced it a couple of times, like just knowing it seems to have made a difference. What is it about knowing the patterns that helps you?
I think it helps me remember some of the strengths that I have within me and some of the um, some of the things that I want to avoid. So not getting in my own way and not overloading my plate and making sure that I'm speaking in a kind, compassionate way when I'm teaching people about mental health or when I'm talking about my books, that I'm not like, oh yeah, I'm working on my second book and da, 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 like not taking over, because
Mm,
Vicky and I have talked also, and Alexander, I think you and I have in the courses that I've taken with you, this is royal energy and it's a lot sometimes. So I think that, you know, that can be a little overwhelming sometimes in myself, like I just am like,
Mm.
okay, I sometimes might come off as like too much, which I know your real people aren't going to think you're too much. They're going to see your light shining, but
Well, it's true. Just one more thing before you do what you want to do. I want to point out that for everyone who I've ever met or worked with who is playing a royal energy, Jack, Queen, or King, the crown can weigh heavy, which is a
Mm.
cliche, but in this case, it's specific and it's appropriate to you with your life journey, your path. That crown can weigh heavy, and that's what you sounds like you're alluding to when you talk about it can be too much.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a lot of royal energy, and then it's a lot of masculine
Yeah,
energy. You have this playful prince energy, generative energy of the Jack of Diamonds, generating what you value most
as
in
your
your
birth card.
life as
Yeah.
your birth card. And then, you know, coming through with your through your wisdom and your knowledge in a kingly way with the King of Clubs. How has it been for you to have a balance with your feminine energy? Because we all have feminine and masculine energy within each of us, and there's a lot of masculine energy here.
Right, and then there's my 10 of clubs princess in my Pluto shadow to contend with, So there have been many times, and I would say especially in the, last, 6 years where I have recognized that I need to just take a step back, and instead of making something happen, just allowing space and not being so, um, you know, like a generator for sure in the jack, like generating the material things without, and I think the the best thing I think about the jack of diamonds is that it's not a materialistic or superficial way of playing that card, like with any of the diamonds. um so recognizing where I wanted to balance that energy, but also the feminine energy of saying, okay, it's okay to take a step back and not like be in charge all the time, which I think I'm doing a really good job with at this stage, like taking the steps in the right direction, but also just trusting that things can unfold in divine timing.
Yes, beautifully said. And I would echo Vicky's question, her sentiments that I wonder out loud, and you can, please tell us how challenging it is to be born as a biological woman, but yet playing masculine archetypes. That that strikes me as an additional challenge,
And I'd like to add, I mean, you said this because you added that the 10 of clubs is the princess card
but it's in the shadow.
and it's in the shadows. The princess card is the 10th card, and there is no face on the princess card, but there's a face on the jack.
Yes,
And
Right.
so she is in search of her face, the
right.
princess. So you add that to this as
Yeah.
well.
Yes. Were you very
Yeah.
masculine growing up? Were you like a tomboy?
Um, Not really. A little bit. I definitely did like to play outside a lot, but I was a theater kid when I was in
Wow.
middle and high school. So I liked to take the stage and
Hmm.
try on different personalities and that kind of thing. So
So you were drawn to the stage at an early age.
yeah, yeah.
Really a jack of all trades. It's
Well,
great. It's great.
and the trying on different faces,
Mm.
that's an interesting way to talk about accessing your Pluto card, the Princess of Clubs. As Vicky said, the 10 energy, which the 10 of clubs is about looking for your face.
Mhm.
And interesting that as a young girl, you were trying on different faces.
Yeah, well before I knew anything about this knowledge.
Sure. That's one
um,
of the things I find really fascinating is that it does play out whether we know the cards or not.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I was um I had a lot of energy as a kid, I was always like I liked to be doing things, and I would say that I could probably be like more of the dominant person, in friendships and but I definitely I stepped into more feminine energy as I got in, older and definitely now I feel very I feel like I do a pretty decent job. I mean, it's a constant like I'm like, "Okay, Logan, take a step back." You know? But that's also, you just have to be your own best friend and kind of like talk yourself through certain things so that you can recognize like what kind of energy am I approaching this situation with and how do I want this to, what's the best way for me to play in this situation.
I've definitely seen you do that. I have seen how your feminine side blossoms. It's really beautiful to witness. I've definitely seen that over the years.
Thanks.
Lovely.
I mean, and it would make sense in terms of the cards, that would make sense that your feminine energy would be something that would need to blossom because the feminine energy for you is in the shadows. So
Mhm.
bringing your feminine energy out of your own shadow, that's in the cards that way,
Yeah.
that would be true.
Yeah, I think when I was younger, in especially romantic relationships, I wanted to like make it go the way I wanted it to go. And like, this is now like, why isn't it going this way? And all these things. And now I am so much more in the energy of like, even in the breakup in March. And I, remember sending you a voice note, Vicky, that I was like, and so I'm letting go. And it is hard because I thought he was my soulmate, but I recognized that he wasn't, and I called it off this time. And it was great because that was me saying like, "Okay, you're not my person. I'm letting go." And then Vicky told me all the challenges that were in our cards. Because I was like, when we first got together, I was like, "I'm just not seeing the connections." And then I remember Vicky sending me a voice note about all the connections that were potentials. And the other interesting thing, and just in talking about romantic relationships, I recently connected with a guy, and I was like, "All right, we have to do your cards." And so I have the back pages of your book, Alexander, on my phone in my favorites, so that I can easily access the
Mhm.
dates. And so I looked up his cards, and he is a 5 of Diamonds birth card, and his personality cards could either be Jack of Diamonds or King of Clubs. And I was like, "That
Either
explains."
way.
Right.
Okay.
I was like, "This explains why it's so easy to be with him."
Yes.
And he feels the same way, and it's just like this flow, easy, and we have the playful, very playful side, which is, we just have fun, and we can get serious, like it's not anyway.
Yeah, well, that's when the cards are compatible, then it is easy. I
Mhm.
mean, not always easy, but it's much easier because you're literally on each other's wavelength because the cards are symbols of energy frequencies. And so you're on each other's energy frequency. So then it's not as challenging to make yourself understood to each other.
Right.
I also see it as in March with the breakup, it's like you were really seeing yourself, honoring yourself, acknowledging yourself, and focusing on what is for your greater good, what's right for you, And then this is the next thing that happens for you. Like this is the next thing you bring in is something that is more compatible,
Right.
you know.
Right. And easy,
Yeah.
much easier.
It's really,
And
yeah.
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Just in the 2 previous serious relationships, um, they both were Jack of Clubs, different days, but Jack of Clubs, birth cards.
Hmm.
And that is my soul gift, which means I am their soul challenge.
And you're also their Saturn card in their life path.
Oh,
And that
okay.
can mean life lessons. And I have seen people happily married to their Saturn card, but it's not typically a relationship dynamic that we would recommend because it can be very challenging.
Both people really need to be on the path to
Yeah,
growth,
if
to
that's going to
have
work.
that
Yeah.
work, to be really reflecting and communicating. And I mean, that's good advice in general, but it can be
Yeah.
more challenging with those card dynamics.
Yeah.
I love how you made that decision for yourself, Logan, that you weren't going to settle and you were going to call it off and you stood up for yourself energetically. And then something better came along for you.
Right. And, we don't know where this will lead either
Sure.
because
Mhm.
I'm off to Cambridge in 2 weeks, but it's nice right now.
Mm,
And that I think, in March with the breakup, I just said this isn't working.
Mm.
And it was just a really easy. There was no fighting, there was no arguing, there was nothing, and he was like, "Well, I'm not ready for a relationship," like, whatever, I don't need to get into all the details,
yeah.
and I was like, "Okay," and then we have not spoken since. It was the cleanest, easiest breakup I've ever had,
Wow.
and so, like, that, I have to say, it, like, felt so nice to just step into that feminine power because it really that's what I did feel like. I was like the warrior princess, like, holding my sword, but not using it, you
Mm.
know?
Yep. Amazing.
Well, and speaking the truth with love,
Right.
which is a king of clubs quality. You mentioned earlier that your younger self might have been more condescending, but it sounds like in this example, you had the wisdom to speak the truth with love.
Mm.
This is just not working.
Right. Instead of, like, pointing the finger and telling him all the things that he was doing that weren't working for me, I just said, "This isn't working for me." And that felt like a really healthy way to walk away because
Mhm.
he can live his life in any way he wants to, um, and I can do the same.
Well, and the letting go of the judgment and the blame is a huge step in our growth, all of us as human beings.
Yeah.
And that does set us up in a happier energy frequency for ourselves.
Right.
Mm.
And since what we're talking about in all of this, what we're curious to do in talking to you in this episode and for everyone is what has it been like to make that transition to start to play your cards right and let go of some of the more unconscious or negative patterns in the cards and then consciously start to play the high side. Did it inform you? I mean, you be honest, you can tell me if it didn't, but knowing your cards to play, did it inform your ability to have a clean breakup and speak your truth with love?
I mean, perhaps it has. I honestly, it's like it's not that I consciously think that
Mhm.
all the time, but there are moments where I'm like, well, Jack of Diamonds, you know? Or I'm like, oh, here's the 10 of clubs coming,
Mhm.
like here's the shadow.
Mm.
Let's overcome it, so
Okay.
so I will tell you that's how I feel I use the cards. And it's really just those three that I have memorized. I don't have my entire um
Me neither. I
yeah,
find that I just go back to my birth card, the 9 of hearts, that if I
yeah,
start from there, that's that's the path. I mean, I do have the
right.
life path memorized, but I don't, like, think about them.
Right.
I come
Right.
back to the basics for myself because that's what I need to do as well.
Yeah. And I think what's been super helpful is it's helped me when I think I told you both that I use it when I get a new client and I like look up their cards and I just say, okay. And I write it at the top of their intake. And I just
Mm.
have that information where I can say, okay, this person is, let's say there is 6 of clubs, they're like going sideways here. They, like are off track, and too much in their head about something, So, grounding techniques, how can we move forward, like how can we align the path and
Mhm.
looking at their, just that the brief synopsis on each card, I think that's like the most helpful for me because I'm able to just say like, "Oh yeah, okay."
Mm.
And it gives me a little more information. But it's also helpful for challenging family members and
Ah,
for family members I adore and get along with, beautifully. And I'm like, "Oh, okay, this makes sense."
that's brilliant. I love how you're using it as a tool with your clients to, have more information and for support. Do you tell them about their cards, or is it more like you're
I usually tell my
knowing?
friends. I
Mhm.
have told clients before, but it depends on their level of
Person.
spirituality.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
really have to meet
absolutely.
everybody where they are.
Yeah.
So if they're not open to, you know, spirituality and kind of like looking at things that are at the higher level of explaining why we're here, how we're showing up in life and
Mm.
things like that. Um, but I have the book from home, but I have your book right here on my
Aw,
Aw.
awesome.
Amazing.
Logan, I don't know if I told you this anecdote. I love this little story where I used to have my office long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away pre-COVID. Then right next to me was a social worker, a licensed clinical social worker who saw patients. And we became friendly and she was really interested in the cards and I would, talk to her about it. She had my book also and well, had just gotten it because it had just come out. And after she got the book, like a week later, she pulled me aside in the hallway and she said, I have to tell you that I had this patient who, for the whole last year, I couldn't get her to open up. She was just always deflecting and defensive. And then once I learned her cards to play, I was able to ask her the right questions that broke the whole thing open. And we finally started the healing work. So I just wanted to thank
Mm.
you because it's such a great tool that led me to ask the right questions.
That's
I'm
amazing.
I'm wondering, is that something that has been beneficial for you? Have you noticed that it helps you to ask the right questions to your patients?
I notice it gives me more insight into their background. So I would say probably yes, because that's how when we gain more insight into somebody before they are really divulging everything,
Mm.
we can know a little bit about what's going on underneath. And so by having that information and then being able to use that information um, when you're talking about their life challenges or how they are managing their lives and their challenges.
Mm.
I think that's it gives us insight into how we can kind of get down to that foundation and say, like, all right, how do you want to show up in the world?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so
Wonderful.
yeah.
Yeah. I found that for myself as well in working with clients and as the people in my life. Just knowing people's cards to play, just the foundation of it, just to be able to relate in a more harmonious way or, approach people,
Right.
like where they're at, what energy are they playing, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, Speaking of books, I'd love to hear your journey about writing the the right swipe. I was gonna say it backwards.
Was
The
that the
right
first book?
swipe.
Was
That's
that
her first
the
book.
first book? Yeah, The
Yeah.
Right Swipe.
I mean, unless you count The Magic Robe, which I wrote when I was 6 years old.
Oh.
My mother still swears it's somewhere in the basement, but she has yet to find it. But I have a diary from when I was in 1st grade, and it, talks about my crushes on David and Michael and whatever, and stories about, what was happening in my 6-year-old life. But I got very sick. I had the flu, and I put my mom's blue robe on. And all of a sudden I started to feel better. And I said, Mom, it's a magic robe. I want to write a story about it.
Mm.
And so she sat down and we created a little book together, and she helped with the illustrations and helped make the words, spelled correctly, but I wrote the words. And so that's my first book, but it's somewhere in the basement at my mother's house. But yes, the right swipe is my first published novel. And that is it's a light romantic comedy about dating in the Hamptons. It came out in May of 2022. Um, and it's a trilogy in my mind. So there is a sequel, but as I started writing the sequel, I actually felt I was saying the same thing to many clients, and I felt like my self-development book had to be the next thing.
Mm.
So I put the second of the swiping series to the side, and I started writing It's Not Them, It's You, thinking it would be a nice, easy, I would get it out, get it done. Started in like January of 2023. And
Mm.
here we are 3 years later. It'll be out 3 years after it's
Have you finished it?
conceptualized. Um, I am very close to finishing it. Yes. So that is,
How long is it?
um, it's,
Like,
well, in a Word document, it's about 140 pages.
okay.
But that'll be different once it's formatted for print.
I can really feel like how you're playing your cards in writing these books. Like The Right Swipe is a really fun read. And I felt like I could connect to the characters like they were my friends, And then there was some really good teachings in it as well. Like you really get, there's some deeper, themes going on and learning going on. And it feels very playful to me, like the Jack of Diamonds,
Yeah.
generating something that's fun and a pleasure reading. And then this next book feels very much like your wisdom, like coming from the King of Clubs in a way. It's like there's this, dance of both.
Yeah. Thank you. I love
Really,
that.
yeah.
I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, It's Not Them, It's You is all about like understanding that you are in the captain's seat. You are in charge. So like there can be so many things that happen in your life that are out of your control, but you can control how you move forward. And so that's really that's I feel like it's also kind of connecting to the 10 of diamonds, and actually like publishing and getting it out there,
The 10
right?
of clubs.
I mean, 10 of
Yeah.
clubs, diamonds.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
To take it a little deeper for a moment, the way for the Jack of Diamonds, your birth card, to play your cards well is to take full responsibility for everything that you create, which is not to say that we all shouldn't do that,
Mhm.
but the different cards have different emphases of what is the contribution, what is the gift, what is our life's purpose. So mine, the Nine of Hearts, it's about lifting people up and inspiring people. And the Jack, it's about you are responsible to generate the world that you want for yourself, and really honoring that for yourself and being accountable to that in yourself. And then that becomes the teaching that you can give. And it sounds like that's the message of your self-help book.
Yeah. Oh, the other interesting I love that perspective. The other interesting story that I have about my younger self is when I was a senior in high school, I was in several public speaking courses that my mother made me take, and I hated at the time, but then obviously recognized how valuable it was for my adult life. So I was in a public speaking course and wrote this whole speech on finding a career that you love, and loving what you do, because it trickles into so many other aspects of your life. And I took it from the local competition to the regional to the state competition, And then I was in seventh place there or whatever. So I didn't move to nationals, but that's okay. The point is that I've lived it.
Mm.
And when I wasn't happy in the corporate world, I moved into teaching. And then when I was, tired of the bureaucracy, I moved into marketing. And then when I was like, I love this creative work, but it's not really my vibe, I'm moving on. And then once I established my psychotherapy practice and felt like I could dive back into the right swipe, I did it. And then I was like, okay, this is my first of many books, and like, so creating the life, as you were
Mhm.
saying, Alexander, yeah, creating the life that I've wanted. And now moving to Cambridge to take a creative writing course because I've always wanted to live outside of this country. And the timing just seems right. So
I was going to ask you, and so you're going to England to take a creative writing course?
I am
That's
originally.
like, it feels like nowadays everything could be done online, so I'm just a little surprised.
So originally the move was because of said ex-boyfriend, the man we were mentioning. And then once I broke it off with him after the dust settled, I was like, I still want to move to England. And so it just felt like a really cool adventure that I could take. And given that I don't have children and I have a dog child, my dog daughter, Callie, she's the only thing to really be concerned with getting over there and myself. And why not, take this time and just try it out. And so we'll see how it all unfolds.
And what do you do with your psychotherapy practice as you go?
So I'm actually in my office currently. I can see my clients who are in New York because my license is in New York. I can see them as long as they're in New York. And then, so I'll just work remotely. And then I have this office, and I actually have other clinicians that sublet it from me. So it's being used. So that's a nice thing, and I
I
can
see.
have it for when I come back.
So you'll keep your clients as you travel and you'll work
Yeah,
remotely.
yeah, right.
That's fantastic. I feel like this relationship that you had that broke off in March really was like a catalyst for all these wonderful things that are happening for you.
Yeah,
So
I use
good.
that exact word for
Yeah.
sure. It really was. So some people are like, "Oh, he da da da," and I'm like, "Okay, it was 4 months, not a big deal, and look where I am now."
Mm. Yeah.
And so many beautiful things have come of it. Not only me saying, "Okay, this is not working," and also me saying, "Okay, and I still want to move out of the country and, just try
Mhm.
living in England." It's really like, I mean, it's not more than a flight to California. You just need a passport, from New York. So
Do you have a timeline of how long you want to stay in England?
I don't. Yeah, it's again, it's going to be, let's see how it unfolds, and we'll take it from there.
That is an adventure.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like it's a fabulous teaching and very inspiring for our listeners in how you like how you move through your life, how you feel into something and suddenly you're like, this is not fulfilling for me. I'm going to move on to this because this is where my path is taking me. This feels more fulfilling, and then the next thing that feels fulfilling for you and how you move into each phase in your life to me is so inspiring because I feel like in the collective, like people don't often do that, like,
Right.
the more of the norm is like, I have this job, I'm stuck in this job, it's money, and, I got to stay in the job. And I do want to do this thing over here, but I feel, I'm going to just stay here because it's easier. So it's really inspiring to hear you talking about like how you move and into the next place for yourself and how, you trust your guidance system. It's
Yeah.
yeah, really amazing.
Yeah, I think it's a jack of diamonds thing too, is to follow your intuition, right?
Follow
So,
your instincts,
yeah.
trust your instincts.
Mhm.
So,
And you said it earlier about being a jack of all trades. It doesn't necessarily mean that you don't master them. You can master each aspect. and you do need to keep it interesting for yourself. And
Yeah.
there's a reason why in the iconography, the Jack of Diamonds is depicted with all these tools, that you have a lot of talents, and accessing and developing all the different talents that you have.
Yeah.
It's important for you.
It is.
Otherwise, life would be too boring for you.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's important that I like, tap into the things that keep me feeling fulfilled. And, it's like balancing beach time with golf course time, with writing time, with social time, with, working, and helping people. And yeah. And so it's finding that balance.
Finding that balance, I would say and the way to find that balance is that you trust your instincts.
Mhm.
Have you noticed that your instincts will tell you, oh, now is the time for this? And it's an instinctive response.
Absolutely. Interestingly enough, the more I have started to like pack up my house because I'm going to Airbnb my house while I'm over there so that if I'm like throwing my papers in the air in April and saying, "Get me back to the States. I miss my family and friends." No, but I have been packing up my house, and the interesting thing is that in moving all this energy and putting away things for, storage and stuff, I am finding that I am balancing things and I am listening to my inner guidance. I'm like, okay, so instead of putting on a show, I'm going to just have some classical music playing and I'm going to set a timer for 20 minutes and work on the book. And then we'll see where I am. And, so I'm taking breaks from the physical stuff and then I'm doing the paperwork that I need to do, getting my visas and applications and everything like that in order. But I've been really good about finding that balance lately. So as I'm shaking things up, there's like a groundedness about me right now, which
Mm.
feels really good. And it's just like, and I think I'm really listening to my inner guidance in terms of like self-care and what I'm needing for each moment.
Also good advice about, finding that balance because it's, hey, listen, you got to listen to music. You got to
Yeah,
like take time and work out. You got to relax. You got to, it's
right.
so important, like to take
Yeah.
breaks and honor oneself with what
Well,
what
and
one needs.
yeah, and it's in your cards to play. We'll talk about a different one of your cards in your life path now. That your Saturn card
Okay. That's
is
where
the
I was
Six
going.
of Clubs. And the six is all about balance. So it can be a life lesson for you to learn how to find balance. And because it's in clubs, it's in your mind that it begins. That's
Mhm.
where the balance really begins. Not necessarily in your physical environment, but having peace of mind is what it may be challenging to find peace of mind. So has that been true? I mean, and what, or, and me ask it a little softly rather than just be like, is that true or not? Like, what are the ways in which you've seen for yourself the importance of finding peace of mind?
Well, I think when I first started as a psychotherapist, I was working way too much and I was not trusting my inner guidance system. I was like trying to find YouTube videos to help me with techniques. And my therapist at the time said, Logan, you have all the tools within you. You
Mm.
need to trust yourself. And so I was not balanced at that time. And it was like waking up in the middle of the night. I mean, I still do that sometimes with, racing thoughts of like, oh my gosh, I have to bring this to the office tomorrow. Like, but because, when there's a lot on, you've got to have the right lists and the right, things to help you
Mm.
organize. But that I am a list maker and I will say that that does help me balance.
It helps you line up your thoughts.
It
Yes.
does. Yep. Yeah.
This is a very intuitive energy. It's considered like
The Six of
very
Clubs.
very psychic, the Six of Clubs. And then it's funny that you chose this as an example earlier and talked about like veering off to the side, you know? So, yeah, it is really about trusting your intuitive insights and being, knowing that you are plugged in and you have tremendous intuitive insights and then following them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where do you feel in other places in your life that you did like to kind of have that where like veering off, like the challenge of that?
I think definitely in the process of publishing The Right Swipe, that was a major challenge because I was so like wanted to get it done, but it was almost like a frantic energy instead of just saying, okay, it doesn't have to come out right before Memorial Day weekend. Like we could push this publication date. Like I'm an independent publisher. It's not anything that like Penguin Random House is gonna like tell me I'm on deadline, which is not, whatever. It's where I am now. But I think that I have, when I'm overloaded, that's when I veer off course.
Mm.
Mhm.
When I have too much on the to-do list, I can I can for sure just be like completely in my head
Mhm.
and not really staying the course and finding all of the things to do on the to-do list that are easy,
Mm.
but not doing the one thing that really needs to get done.
Um,
I can so
I
relate
was
to
gonna say,
that.
I think we can all relate
I
to
can
that.
so relate to that. Yeah, I mean,
Because
there can be such a rigidity in this 6 of clubs and these 2 straight lines, like, boom, like this real
yeah,
but, you're talking about being flexible, and that's really the key, is to learn
yeah,
how to be flexible in your thoughts. How can you have
right,
flexibility and say, "Well, if it doesn't come out now and it's 2 weeks," or whatever it is, whatever it is, just to
right,
be, like, flexible in that, which
yeah,
is good moving forward with your next book.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a powerful lesson. Whatever is our Saturn card, it can be a lifelong lesson. And so, as you're talking about learning to be flexible in your thoughts, but also line up your thoughts and create
Mhm.
to do lists, get the thoughts out of your head, but then not be too attached to or too rigid on like, this has to happen the way I've just written it down. There is an ongoing flexibility in how things might line up. And that's where your intuitive guidance can come in to show you, okay, I can let this one go. No, over here, I need to press forward and make sure that this lines up. But over here, I can be relaxed and allow this to flow in its own timing. So it's a journey, and it can be a journey. It's a lifelong process for you to learn that.
Right.
And from what I know of you and what you're sharing, it certainly sounds like something you've leaned into and you know of yourself that that's something that works for you, that you need that, and all the self help work you've done on yourself to
Mhm.
learn that for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
It
Eh
really is the Oh, go ahead, you go.
No, you go.
I was gonna say it really is the key to playing cards well is to just lean into them, all of them, the whole life path of cards to understand and accept the high side and low side and that's what one is playing and then lean into it, in observing oneself in like, how is this showing up for me right now? Like, am I playing this well or am I like, on the low side, and then learning from that and making
Yeah.
different choices the next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Instead of resisting it and fighting against it or playing the victim card, pun intended. Why this for me? Why is this always the thing that I need to figure out?
We hear a lot of people say I mean, I do
Yeah.
hear people saying that, like, "Why did I get this?" Yeah, so instead of
Yeah,
leaning into it. Yeah,
and saying, "What can I learn from this?"
exactly.
Right.
And what I was going to say is like, yes, I've done a ton of self-development work, but I do feel like this knowledge really plays into how you can continue on that self-development path and finding what you most need.
Mm.
So if you have clubs, in your life path, a lot of clubs, then it's good to work on mindset, you know? And different if you have a lot of hearts, or if you're a hearts, you look at, the emotional
Yeah.
aspect of things. And so I
And we
just
all
think,
have we all have all four suits in different parts of our life path. So we're all learning and growing in those. And then the specificity of, oh, is this a shadowy energy for me to bring out of my
Mhm.
shadows? Is this one a life lesson for me? Is this one a talent? This is a gift that I can receive more of, that we can be specific in how we look at them. I like that.
Right. Right. And especially for people, I hear about people. I'm a part of a self development book club. And I
Mm.
see people post on the Facebook group all the time, like, I'm lost. I don't know which direction to go in. And I'm like, I don't know which direction to go in either, but I just have a lot of directions that I'm passionate about. But no,
Yeah.
I've definitely, I feel like I have several directions that I am going in.
Mhm.
But when people find that, I think looking at the life path, looking and getting to know their cards could be such a gift for them, so that they could really learn more about themselves and like tap in. Because often when people don't know where to go, or don't have that inner guidance that they're listening to, or they're listening to the external guidance, maybe their parents told them that they needed to follow in the family's business, you
Sure.
know, or something like that. They were told they would never amount to anything, or they, whatever, to, they're not smart enough to do certain things. But when they can learn more about themselves and tap into that, this guidance, it could be a real gift for them to say, oh, you know what? I actually really always did love creating things. Maybe
Mhm.
I should start an Etsy shop, and, like, whatever. Who
Yeah.
knows? I'm just kind of like going off the cuff here, making up
Yeah.
Yes.
examples, but I do think that the knowledge can be really valuable, especially when people are not feeling like they have, the inner guidance, system, when they're feeling a little
Absolutely.
lost, and they need something to help guide them.
Well, absolutely. Thank you for saying that, Logan. And I'll add to that by saying that it's about knowing that we are on the right path, instead of the endless self questioning, where you give the example of the self development group and people are like, I don't know what I'm doing. And you're like, I don't know either. But you know that you know enough to be on the right path for yourself, even if there's uncertainty, even if you're going into the unknown. You have an inner clarity that perhaps you've gotten from the cards or from other work you've done. You have an inner clarity that means that you can be comfortable in the unknown.
Right. Yeah, and my unknown is really, it's just like, where do I allocate my energy, because there are so many options, but some people really don't have that guidance, so
They haven't looked into themselves enough, and they don't
right,
have access, maybe because they don't have these same tools. They don't have a way to see how to make that decision for themselves. So
right,
even that decision making process is cloudy. Like, what do I even trust? What is my touchstone of guidance within myself? They don't even have that yet.
right, exactly.
Well, now is the time. Look up your cards to play. And find that spark. I find that it provides like a spark of something, like,
Mhm.
oh, wait, like an aha moment. I've heard that so many times, of like, it, like everything made sense, or it just gave me so many answers about myself that I already knew, but it was confirming, like that kind of thing.
It's funny, like, this is like so inside information, but like, there are people that I know, like, in passing or whatever, and I'll like look up their birthday on Facebook or something. I'll be like, what cards is he playing? And then I'll just like look up I'm like, oh, yep, that makes sense. Ace of spades or something like that. you know? And it's like, I'm not always, I don't obsess over that, but it's just like sometimes
Fun.
you just
It's
like,
really fun. I
what
mean, we
what
look
it's
up everybody's card.
so
We love looking
fun.
up cards to play, or we're
Yeah.
often like, do you think she's a queen of hearts or a three of, clubs or whatever, like we'll guess, and then we'll usually share if it's with the person that we're talking to or that someone we know, like we'll ask birthdays and then like share their cards to play. But
We like to guess with movies and shows that we're
yeah.
watching what the
Oh, I
actors
love
and
it.
actresses
Yeah.
are. Yeah.
I actually, a couple that I met in England when I was just there in September, October, I did their cards and they're both Leos. And so, and then I did their synergy card too. And so, and I told them all the things. I can't remember, honestly. I should have looked it up before our meeting, but it was so made sense.
Mm.
All of the things. And I was like, oh my gosh, it all was like so aligned. I'm totally going to look it up right now. Yeah, one of them's a 10 of diamonds and one of them's a 10 of clubs.
Hmm. Yeah, the 10
And
energy.
I think their
Yeah.
synergy card was like a 7 of hearts or something like that. It was like, it was so perfect. It was so beautiful.
Yeah, often if like the number is the same, the 10 and the 10, there's like a,
Yeah.
Mhm.
simpatico. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
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 Like, yeah.
Mm.
So one final question. If you had a billboard that millions or even billions of people could see, what message would you put on the billboard and why?
I want to say start with today
Oh.
because that's all we have. And also, something from my book is that if you want to emerge as the phoenix, you've got to run into the fire. So it's not always easy to do the work, but once you do the work, it can be so transformative and so powerful. And so I feel like, people, they become fearful of diving into their deeper emotions or feel fearful of uncovering something that might be tough to go through. And once you go through that, is it going to be tearful? Like, are you going to are you going to cry? Are you going to feel shitty? Are you going to feel sad? Are you going to feel angry, frustrated, all those negative emotions? Yes, at times. And then once you get through that, you are able to release and let go of so many things, and you just can live a lighter, more empowered life when you're accessing the right tools.
Wow.
I'm just taking all of that in.
I
It's
love that.
really good. Really, really good.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Be willing to go into the fire. Mhm.
Yeah. Because nobody ever, I use an analogy, like nobody ever got like really in great shape by going to the gym once. Like you have to push yourself. You have to go through the tough things. And that's the same with, physical workout. It's our mental workout. We just need to do the mental work, mindset work.
Or emotional work too.
Or emotion. Yes, exactly. Much of which is connected,
Sure.
the
The inner work, we could say.
inner work. I like that.
Go
Sums it up.
into the fire.
Yeah,
Well, you're going to England. You're going into a new fire.
I am. A very rainy fire.
Yes. That's true. And you're going to be in Cambridge?
I am going to be in Cambridge, yes.
It's a college town, right? I
It
imagine.
is. Yeah.
Some good pubs, British food. I don't know how you feel about that, but
It's gotten a lot better. And Cambridge is also just a little, like I love Oxford. It's beautiful. Cambridge is a little more bucolic. So it's got the River Cam that runs through it, lots of greenery, lots of parks. And so that's what really drew me there.
Lovely.
So, and it's about an hour and 15-minute train ride to London. So it's nice and accessible.
is the creative writing course at Cambridge University?
No, it's at Anglia Ruskin University.
Okay.
Yeah. Cambridge didn't have a course starting in January, so I looked at, other university options, and Anglia Ruskin seems really great.
Mm.
So I'm
Well, I
excited.
am super, super excited for your new adventure. It's going to be fabulous.
Thank you. Me too.
And this has been absolutely a pleasure to
Oh,
have you on
ditto.
our show.
Same.
And how can people find you and buy your books?
They can find me on logankingston.com and at Logan Kingston Official on social media.
Okay.
Okay.
Fantastic. And we'll put it in the show notes too so people can look at it there.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Logan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Alexander, and thank you, Viki.
Thanks, everybody.